Thank you.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Eating at a Meeting. I do this wrong all the time, every episode. So Tracy Stuckworth here, your host, and I am so excited, and I do this again, to bring these two ladies to you, Debbie and Candice.
Hi.
And I've been following you, and they are the two Alpha Gals. Together, they are the two Alpha Gals. And I've been following you for a good year and a half, but I met you this year in person. So so excited.
I know.
And so I wanted everybody to meet them because they have Alpha GAl, hence the name of their company, which is an allergy to meat. And I want to talk more about this. And I did talk to Amanda about it a couple months ago, and I'll give you the link to that one as well. But I wanted to bring them on to even expand this a lot more. So hello, ladies.
Hi, Tracy.
Hi there. Thank you so much for having us today.
Oh, you're welcome. So we were having this lively discussion before we went live on exactly, I mean, what is Alpha GAl? Tell everybody what it is. And then how did you all come to know that you had it?
Sure. Well, so Alpha GAl, in really concise terms, is an allergy to meat, but it's so much more than that, honestly. What it is it is an allergy that develops after the bite of the Lone Star tick that causes our bodies to become allergic to an Alpha GAl sugar, right? And so what that means is that we cannot ingest or topically apply any mammal or mammal byproduct to ourselves. So that can range everywhere from food to your household products to your bath and beauty products, and be exposed. And there is a wide range of severity and how allergic people are. But for Candice and I, should we be exposed to it, this is a very severe allergic reaction that could occur.
Well, and I want to pull, if I have it here, I want to pull up this Lone Star tick picture because that little sucker, pun intended, right? Pun intended. Where did it go? I did a picture of it this morning. Where is it? Let's look on my LinkedIn profile. It's smaller. How do I even do this? It's like the size of this little toothpick on my finger, like that little.
Yes, they can be very, very tiny. And you can contract Alpha GAl syndrome from like the very early stages, like the very young stages of the tick. And so, Candice can tell you from experience.
Yeah, the one I found back in 2007 on me was smaller than a speck of pepper. Like it was tiny, tiny, tiny. And that was when all of my stuff kind of happened a month after that. But I was going to add to the allergy part of this, something that sets this allergy apart from other food allergies is that there's typically a delayed reaction. So it's not like ingesting peanuts and you automatically, go into anaphylaxis.
Right.
It's like a 3 to 12 hour delay.
Wow.
So it can, if you eat steak for dinner, you could potentially wake up in the middle of the night with an onset of a reaction. So it kind of threw the medical world on its head in a lot of ways.
All right. So I want to give a shout out. Hold on real quick. Shout out to John Chen in Seattle. Hello, my friend. But he also tagged Nicole Smith, so now I posted that I know 5 people. I actually know 7 people with this.
Wow. Okay.
I'm like, I think that's pretty prominent.
Yeah.
Yes, because I think when we started this, shortly after our diagnosis, started this whole awareness campaign and trying to bring, 2 Alpha GAls into the light. Occasionally, I would talk to somebody in a restaurant or at a party, and they would say, "Oh, I know somebody who has that." Now it's almost everybody that I talk to says, "Oh, I know somebody who has that."
Yeah.
It's definitely becoming more common. And that's what research is pointing to, that they think that there are enormous numbers of people who actually have this who don't know it because of the delayed reaction, making it very difficult, and the wide range of severity, and the fact that it looks like so many other things, Lyme disease, other autoimmune disorders, makes it very hard to diagnose.
Yeah.
Well, and it's interesting the delay thing because, typical for everybody to know, a typical food allergy, your reaction is like immediately up to 2 hours. And this can actually happen delayed. And I think I saw it on your website, one of the videos from the doctor at Chapel Hill saying, people eat meat at dinner. They're not necessarily eating it at breakfast or at lunch. They're going to eat it at dinner. And they don't tie that back to their dinner meal because they're having the reaction the next morning.
Yeah. Or in the middle of the night, right?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Exactly. And I'll say when I was bitten back in 2007, a month later, I started having GI issues, had never had issues before, but Alpha GAl wasn't actually discovered until 2009. So no one ever connected the dots on that. And that was how my symptoms were presenting, is I would wake up the next morning and have massive GI distress. And we can't go anywhere without saying diarrhea. So I might as well just say it. Get it out there. So I think now, all these years later, and I wasn't actually diagnosed with Alpha GAl until 2019. So, I just can connect the dots from the years of all of the up and down. But I was diagnosed with a wheat allergy. But I just wonder, because I did eat a lot of bacon at breakfast, I can now see that I probably had the GI variant of Alpha GAl for years and then was rebitten and things went anaphylactic for me after.
So did you ever find the tick on you? Because those little suckers are hard to find.
I did that back in 2007, but when I was rebitten, I did not. And Debbie never found the tick on her.
I never found one on me. And I've had symptoms since about the same time that Candice has, 2007, 2008, something like that. Again, not diagnosed until 2019.
All right, Candice, you were on the Today Show this summer. I found that video. Was that your hand? Was that your hand that was your picture of your hand? Okay.
So that was when I woke up one morning in 2018 with this bite on my hand, and it blistered and started to grow in size. I started to just feel kind of fatigued and blah, just kind of like you do at the onset of a virus or something. And I went to urgent care and they said, "Oh, you have a spider bite." Gave me antibiotics. I mean, it definitely helped, I guess, with the spreading, but I then, it was probably just a few months after that bite when things became very acute for me. So,
and they show a picture of you in the hospital. Yeah. Because you flatlined, is that what you said?
Well, not technically. My heart did not stop.
Okay.
But I flatlined in my daily living. I went from being extremely active for years to overnight I couldn't get off the couch by myself. I had a really severe anaphylactic episode is what they're believing now. At the time I didn't know that it was anaphylaxis because my blood pressure bottomed out. So I woke up to seeing double, in the room spinning, my heart racing, feeling like my brain was shaking. I mean, it was a terrifying experience. And even my husband, who's in the medical field, did not know that anaphylaxis didn't involve swelling and hives. So I went for for probably 2 months without realizing that was what I was dealing with. And I had to call on Debbie during that time. I felt very divinely pulled to her because I had to ask someone to come sit with me while my husband went to work because I could not be alone without feeling faint. And it just was a really, really scary time. So that was kind of when we were new friends.
New and fast friends.
Yeah.
You get to know somebody really well when you're walking into the bathroom.
Right.
Yeah. So that was when everything kind of came to a head, I guess, for really kind of both of us.
I was going to say, and then Debbie, you realized that you were having some symptoms similar to Candice's and went to the doctor and got tested.
I insisted on being tested because I'd had so many similar symptoms to what she was experiencing, not anaphylaxis at that point. I have since had several anaphylactic episodes. Again, now that we know a little bit more about what anaphylaxis looks like. But no, at that time, after she got her diagnosis, I actually made an appointment right away. And I was like, I need to be tested for this. I think I have it because I had made the connection that red meat was a trigger for my GI issues. I had been waking up in the middle of the night and, with the GI problems. But nobody ever said, even after 10, 11, 12 years of going to doctors and specialists and everything, nobody ever suggested it was from a tick bite.
Okay, so all right, I want to get into what you can and cannot eat and what this means. And I know that your list is a little bit longer than maybe some people's, but how did your life change when you found out, and you stopped eating meat? Because you were like needing Debbie to sit by you, Candice, while your husband's away. What did it do?
Well,
both of you can answer that. Yeah.
So before we really knew, Debbie was making me beef bone broth soup.
I was just trying to help.
So it was great in the moment.
Yeah.
3 hours later.
I remember her saying, this is so nourishing, right? Like it's healing. Nope.
About died.
Wow.
I think it shifted everything. I mean, because it took a long time to realize my severity, like the level of severity. And like you were saying, there's such a range. So like some people only have to eliminate beef or pork, or, they just have to eliminate the meat side. I had to just slowly figure it out, because at that point there wasn't, you leave even one of the top specialists and they're just like, here's some of the literature. We don't know where you fall. You kind of just have to feel it out. Right. And so I eliminated beef and pork immediately, but I also have been navigating a wheat allergy for 15 years. And I knew that there were more intricacies to this. So like when I was leaving UVA, I looked at all of my antihistamines that I was on. They were all in gel caps. So like I was constantly just being inundated with some form of a mammal byproduct. So I literally just started cutting it all out. Dairy. Then I went into the byproducts and I felt such a relief. I would say within a week, things started to shift for me, where I wasn't like waking up in the middle of the night with my heart racing. And that was where I just kind of kept going until things really started improving for me. And I think, we're very grateful with the families that we have that are really supportive, but it changes everything. I can't cook it in the house. I mean, I almost pass out if I'm around it cooking. So it was I went from being paleo to completely plant-based. So it was like a complete 180 for me over the years, but we're now into like year 4 of this. So, it takes time. And I think that's one thing I want to just encourage everyone, just keep seeking answers until you feel better.
That's right. Yeah. Because I would just add that, everyone will say, well, do you miss it? How hard is it to give up all that stuff? But the thing about it is that I felt so bad all the time, like praying I would get home from the Kroger with the groceries in the back of the car without having diarrhea, right? Like you feel so bad. It's more than just like feeling physically bad. I felt incapable of being able to do anything, and being able to give things up in order to make that come back. I would have given up anything.
Well, and we were joking beforehand, I say a lot of times with food allergies, it's and celiac disease, it's not like you go to Walmart or Kroger and you buy this thing, you buy this allergy and you can't go back to the store and return it. God help, you would love to do that. But you can't. It's not something that you can buy. And so it's something that you cannot control, and, except for avoiding specific foods.
That's right.
And other items. Yeah.
And all the other things.
Yeah. But, when your quality of life improves, I mean, especially, I was navigating, sorry if you hear my dog. I was navigating, this wheat allergy for years and would have the GI stuff off and on, but it was doable. I feel like for me, like I never was just like incapacitated by it. But with this, it was like when I started feeling better, I wouldn't have gone backwards. I feel better now than I have in 10 years. So you find ways, and that was a big piece of why we started 2 Alpha GALs, was to help people shorten the distance between their diagnosis and joy, because there is joy, there are silver linings, and it just takes time to get back to that place. But you can you know, I now have a love for vegan restaurants and things I never thought I would never have tried it before.
Right.
So that's kind of where we like sit in this space of trying to help people get back to that place, even though it's not going to be exactly like it was before.
That's right.
Well, and my friend Jim Spello is listening to us, saying this is a great conversation, and he's plant-based as well. But he did it for his heart. It wasn't Alpha GAl, but he did it because he had a stroke and such. And so it's the same thing. I mean, he's become this powerhouse, you know, evangelist around the benefits of plant-based, right? And same thing with you all with what you're doing, right?
Yes. Yes. And I can say I continue to eat feathers and fins, you know, but I have seen from the moment Candice changed to eating entirely plant-based, I have seen how she has physically changed and she looks healthy again, and all these things that she was struggling with, not that you weren't beautiful before, but all these things that she was struggling with have gotten a lot easier. So, you know, sometimes it just takes adjustments, right?
Yeah.
And
yeah.
You can get your life
Jim
where it needs to be.
And Jim said he had a stroke too. So he's had multiple things. And so I love what he's doing in promoting that.
Would love to talk to Jim.
Yeah.
Jim would love to talk to you.
Yes.
It's fascinating to me. I mean, you just don't know until you know, right? Like,
right. Mm-hmm.
I don't know. So,
and on top of that, like just to add a side note to the whole vegan plant-based diet thing, giving up meat does not mean giving up flavor. You know, it's come a really long way, I think, in the last couple of decades, but now Candice has introduced my family to a lot of new recipes. And one of my kids' favorite meals is a vegan recipe that I got from Candice. And we don't eat vegan in our house, but it's still one of our favorites. And so
what is it?
It's, oh my gosh, it's so good. It's this vegan quinoa chili. And my kids regularly request it because it makes you feel good when you're done eating it. It's delicious. And it's vegan. Who knew?
We'll send you the recipe, Tracy.
Okay, that would be fantastic. Yeah. Okay, so let's go back to this. And I'm going to say one thing too, is like just talking about, because you mentioned the pills and that things were gelatin pills, right? Well, even my mom and dad, and this is kind of funny to say, they both have pig skin in their bodies for surgeries that they had to repair muscles. And there are people who are having reactions to that.
Yeah, that's right.
And so they're actually devising a pig that doesn't have the Alpha GAl gene in it, right? To be able to do that. But who knew that pigs were in our bodies for surgery wise,
it's
right?
in everything. And I think that is what kind of elevates our allergy to a degree, is that a lot of the mammal derived byproducts, be it in tissue, or I know pacemakers are wrapped or like lined in pig tissue. Yeah. I mean, it's really in a lot of medical a lot of medical devices and things like that. So it does add this element to it, to going to the dentist, to things that just might not be clearly labeled, or people don't know, right? Because there's so many different like ways to spell out certain ingredients and all of that stuff. The transparency is very not
lacking.
Transparent. I was going to say it's very gray. It's not transparent at all. So it just adds a layer to those, or for those of us that are extremely sensitive.
Right. And then Jim just made a comment too. This is really important for people to know too, is that not all wine is vegan.
That's
and
right.
so the fining process and, eggs, and there's fish skin that's used in some. And I know that some have gone vegan in doing that. I remember reading a story. What's the really dark beer? Guinness went vegan a couple of years ago, at least one brand of theirs, right? Or one product of theirs. But looking at that, because they do want to meet those needs of that other market. And
and we even have to watch for some, so like red algae, which is carrageenan, agar-agar, has actually, they've found the Alpha GAl epitope in that algae particularly. So some people also react to that. So we have to even watch for vegan products that contain that. So it just gets, we can't take anything at face value. We can't take any label at face value until we really look at every ingredient.
Wow. That's just kind of mind-boggling in and of itself.
It is.
And I know that Amanda, and I'm going to look this up and get the podcast episode. She has to watch for Carrie Ann, and she's actually a school nutritionist, or over in Western Virginia, and she was seeing it in so many products that the kids were eating, right? And prepackaged products. So that's kind of crazy. So, okay, let's go back to this list of food. I mean, I can say, we can easily say mammalian meat, which means, and I put it on one of my Instagram stories, which I forgot to tag you on, but I had little images at the bottom: cow, bison, pig, sheep, goat. Those are the big ones. Rabbit. Yep. And there was a whole bunch about whale. Other things that you can't eat. And so that's just looking at the big picture.
Right.
But kind of like the gelatin that's made from pork, what are like some things that people wouldn't even think of that was made from mammalian meat?
Well, Jim got one of the big ones, and that's wine. Wine can be used, well, not meat, with mammal products. And so we have to be very careful on our wine. Thank goodness it's getting easier to find vegan wine. Sugar. That's
really.
Oh yeah, white refined sugar is likely processed using cattle bone char. So organic sugar, which I'm saying organic cane, brown, powdered sugar are safe. But if they are not organic, you're not certain that they're safe.
Well, and there are some that will actually label it as bone char free. Like it actually says that on the packaging. So
you can find that at Kroger and Walmart.
Yeah, Candice has a funny story about the sugar, actually, the labeling.
Well, I saw it years ago, where I think Marina is the brand, Zolka Marina, I think, is the brand of sugar. Florida Crystals are safe. But on their package, it says bone char free. And I remember reading it and I was like, well, that's an odd thing to put on sugar. And then, lo and behold, years later, I'm like, oh, well, that's why.
And I think that sent us down a little bit of a rabbit hole, right? Because then you're like, okay, this one's bone char free. What does that mean is in all the other ones? And that's come up a couple times. Like, for instance, Jiffy Cornbread came out with a vegetarian cornbread. And I was thinking, well, milk's considered, safe for vegetarians. What on earth was in there that wasn't safe for a vegetarian? It was lard. And so we've discovered that this whole navigation process of living this lifestyle takes so much more than we initially thought, right? We figured it out kind of fast after a couple of anaphylactic reactions. You get pretty desperate to figure out what's causing them, but we're constantly finding more stuff and sneaky sources and places where we might be exposed, and even how our allergies are, evolving a little bit and becoming more allergic and different.
Well, and I actually, the sugar thing, I was trying to find out my friend Ashley Mitchell, because she actually is the first one. She's a chef in a catering chef in Atlanta, and she was actually the first one that told me that bone char was in sugar, because she was actually making sure, she was the allergy dietary needs person at her catering company at the time and figuring that out. And so she's like, I want to make it true. I want to make sure that everything that I'm serving is what it is, meets the needs of that person. Right. And I love that. And
I do too, because that, I think, is probably one of the hardest pieces, because even going to vegan, some vegans don't even realize, like, I remember we went to we had a small little vegan restaurant here briefly that's now closed, but they had sriracha on a bowl, and there's sugar in sriracha. So like but it's not certified vegan. So you don't know. There's just so much, like, it's very confusing, the labeling. It can say vegan, but if it's not certified, you don't know.
Well, and even then, some products, as you know, Tracy, some products don't have to be listed if they're used in the manufacture or production of food. Carrageenan is one of those things that doesn't necessarily have to show up on the label. And so sometimes it feels a little like Russian roulette when you're out there trying to pick out chicken breast, and hoping that it doesn't have carrageenan.
Well, and
calls to manufacturers.
Well, yeah, and I was making fun the other day. I'm like, it was Bush's beans, right? The dog has got the recipe, right? But I don't want the recipe. I just want to know the ingredients, right? So that you don't die. But that brings me up to the lady, because you're saying about the sriracha. There was a woman in London who went to a vegan restaurant and went into anaphylactic shock because the restaurant hadn't confirmed that one of the ingredients that they used wasn't certified vegan, and it had milk in it. And she is allergic to milk. And I'm like, you're in a vegan restaurant. Why would you not confirm that, right?
I know, because some people just don't understand the severity of what we're dealing with.
Yeah, we'd love for it to be a choice, but it's not.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So sugar, anything else? Gelatin.
Yes. Yeah, we could give you some where it's found. Yeah.
They use gelatin in the adhesive of the sheets.
How about bottled water? Yeah, we could go on.
Your head falling off.
Yeah. So what brand of toilet paper do you use?
Angel Soft and Quilted Northern are both safe. I think Scott's.
Lots of people don't have trouble with Scott.
Yeah,
they've said.
Charmin is a big no-no. Charmin has all the gelatin.
Well, and anything that has like lotion or moisturizer in it, like puffs can have things like glycerin or lanolin or things that come from mammals.
Okay, so those are two words, glycerin and lanolin. So what are some words to look for?
Gelatin.
Besides gelatin, lactose, casein,
magnesium stearate, stearic acid. So anything stearate, like any derivative of that word,
can be. Not always. But and some things will designate, vegetable magnesium stearate or something like that.
Right.
So those are the things.
Collagen.
Right.
Tallow, lanolin.
Okay.
We could send you it can get kind of lengthy.
Right. Well, I'm sure. And that's something that you have to learn. And it doesn't, and as you said, it's been a 4-year process now, and you're not going to learn it overnight. And a chef's not going to learn that overnight.
Nope.
Right.
So,
okay. There was something you said to me before the show about, let's just talk about food allergies in general and the stereotypes around them, right? Because I actually was looking at a Facebook group the other day, and somebody posted that, circled it and shared, because somebody shared that they were allergic to insects. And this woman's like, or this person, I don't know what male or female or whatever, said, really? And, somebody thankfully commented, well, they're connected to crustaceans. So they could actually have a shellfish allergy. And that's why they're saying, although they didn't say that as well, but, and then somebody's like, yeah, I'm so over this people saying they're allergic to apples. And, and I'm sure that there's somebody in there that's saying, hey, I'm allergic to meat. And it's not because they're saying I don't eat red meat. And it's not necessarily because of an allergy. They're probably saying, hey, because I'm vegan, or, or what, I just eat chicken, right? They're not saying that they have Alpha GAl. But to me, telling a meeting planner that you have this is very important. But the things that you hear about your allergy from people, the rolling of the eyes, or people in general, can we just talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. And so, the first thing I would say is that there are days where I'm really over having a red meat allergy too. Like sometimes it's really hard and I don't want to do it. And I would really like a coconut cream pie, but I can't have it. Right. But this is not a choice. Like you said, I didn't go and buy it at Walmart. I'm not going to go and return to Walmart. Wish I could, but can't. And so to hear those things, which we do, is so discouraging. And I think one of the best examples of this was I was home with COVID in August, and I was watching morning news shows because I never get to watch them. And I was sick in bed and I got to watch the morning news shows and I was thrilled to do that. We were on like the third hour, right? So it's like all fun stuff. And the hosts were answering questions from the audience or from people who had submitted questions. And one of the questions was, my friend is having a birthday party. Another friend approached me and asked if we could change the restaurant possibly to accommodate her food. What was the word?
Her dietary
restrictions. That's what it was.
Yep.
And the hosts reacted exactly as you suggested. They laughed, they rolled their eyes, and then they gave suggestions. They were like, the woman said in the question, should we change the restaurant? And they gave a resounding no, like that. And they laughed and they rolled their eyes. They said, order zucchini noodles, pack a lunch, or better yet, don't go. This broke my heart. I cried over it.
Yeah,
and I immediately, I rewound it on my DVR and recorded it and sent it to Candice, because the thing about it is that I do bring my food when I go. Mm-hmm. There are lots of times where I don't go out because I don't want to have to impact other people's experience because of what I'm living with.
Right.
My really good friends take that into consideration. So I don't have to give up those experiences because the people who really love me and support me and can make it happen for me to be able to join them in a safe environment do just that. But to see it on national television being mocked is what it was.
Right.
Because this is me as an adult, like in my 40s. This is how I'm feeling about it. But there are kids out there, 35 million people live with food allergies every day. And all these kids who are living with them, who are trying to figure this out, who are trying not to be different or singled out or excluded in school, to see adults on national television mocking their allergies, it's not right. We hope that people will choose to do better than that.
And it's dangerous because then how do the staff at a restaurant that see that, it's downplaying it. Yes. It's not a choice. And, yes, like, I understand some people probably want to have experiences at a steakhouse. Yes. I would never be able to walk into a steakhouse. But like Debbie said, what we are trying to help other people do with this, this season of their life or this new lifestyle that we have no choice to live is to reinvent ourselves. That's right? Mm-hmm. So I would hope that the people that love me and want my company would want to experience something new at a restaurant that will not kill me.
That's right. And if my husband has been dying to have, a Delmonico or, one of these really beautiful pieces of food that I can no longer eat, let him go and have that experience. I'm okay with that. But then, I want to have experiences too. But a great example of what Candice is talking about is we have a friend and we went on like a little day trip to Charlotte recently. And we went to a vegan restaurant that actually we've been to before and we know and we love. And we actually will buy lots of things on the menu so that we can try them all. We loved it so much, including our friend who does not have Alpha GAl and is not a vegan, that we ate there for lunch and then scheduled our entire day around the fact so we could go back for dinner.
Wow.
So it's, there are ways to reinvent these adventures to make it safe. Let people have their experiences, but, it's really nice to be included. And we do have those friends who do that. And we're so grateful for them and so grateful for our families who are willing to not cook steak in the house or, things like that or give it up for the most part when we're around. So,
yeah.
Well, go ahead.
Sorry, Tracy. I was just going to say, circling back to just inclusion, I think when you have a platform where you're a pretty big voice, it is going to be more impactful for you to raise awareness and education in a positive way instead of a mocking way, because then how do we ever get taken seriously?
That's right. And this comes on all levels too. Like it would have been a great opportunity on national television for them to educate and say, here are some alternative options. Have you ever thought about going to maybe a sushi restaurant or, something that would have alternatives, although, you have to be careful even at sushi restaurants. But on a local level, right, I was exposed and I had done recently, it was over Thanksgiving weekend, and I had put all my steps in place. I had I called ahead to make sure there was something safe I could eat. I talked with the wait staff. we have made these little stick it to the ticket notepads so that I can circle my allergies on them, and we give it to the wait staff to put on the ticket that they're writing so it makes it back to the kitchen.
Cool.
Right? All these things that we've tried to put in place to make our experiences safe and inclusive. They brought me black beans, and I'm like eating them. I'm like, oh my gosh, these are the best black beans I've ever had. I'm like looking down. I was like, is that cheese in there? And my husband called the waiter over and he's like, yeah, there's cheese in the black beans. I was like, no, like I can't have dairy. I can't have butter. I can't. And he was like, oh, I was just worried about the tacos. And I was like, no, I can't have it in beans either. And sure enough, I had a reaction. I had to leave the restaurant. I had to go through my steps to prevent it from becoming anaphylactic. But instead of getting mad, instead of getting angry, which, yeah, it's a little hard not to get mad when people are trying, accidentally putting cheese in your food. My husband approached the waiter, and the manager was like, I just want to take this opportunity to educate you on what happened. My wife can't have this because it could potentially kill her. She had to leave because she had to treat this allergy reaction that she had. And that's the way that we can make this better, right? Like I can I was okay because my steps were in place and I came out of the reaction okay, but it was an opportunity to educate other people on the severity of what this actually really looks like for those of us who are living with it.
Well, yeah. And then just thinking about the restaurants, and you go into that vegan restaurant. I was in Vegas a couple of months ago, and I went to meet my friend Megan at a restaurant, and I'm looking at the menu, and so let's just say, I know there were like 10 items in the appetizers, right? And then so that's probably about 50 items on this menu. And there were maybe 3 that were labeled gluten-free. Not a single appetizer was gluten-free. And out of 10, right? But then just after Thanksgiving, this like 2 weeks ago, I was in Greenville, and I should find the name of the restaurant. 10 items, 9 of them were gluten-free.
Nice.
And Sarah Jane was laughing at me, and because then the rest of the menu was all labeled, and she's like, you don't even know what to eat, do you? And I'm like, I don't, but think about how much more money I'm spending at that restaurant because I can have 9 different appetizers. I'm like, oh my God,
right.
What can I do? Right, exactly. And at $10 a pop, that's $90 right there. I'm like, I'm not eating that much, but it not only makes my experience better, it raises money for the restaurant. The restaurant makes more money.
That's right. Yeah. And it's not just like in that situation, it wouldn't be just me eating necessarily. It'd be me and my friends, or me and my family. And my family or friends will intentionally choose a restaurant that has those type of options that are safe for me. And then we all eat there, right? Right. Not just let's pick up food for Debbie and take it to the outback, right? Like it's not like that at all. That yeah. 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 And it's such an opportunity to make change and to learn. And you may not be able to do it. I mean, it's like going into a pasta manufacturing facility and say I'm gluten-free, right? And like, you're not going to be able to do that, right? But you can go into places, and it pains me when they put up these signs that say, stay away, or, because they're scared. And I think it's just that, because they're scared or they're uneducated. And so I really appreciate what your husband did. Yeah. Thanks. Me too.
Yeah. Okay. So what advice would you give somebody all right, two-part question, that has been recently diagnosed with Alpha GAl Syndrome? And it's for everybody to know, again, we're talking about a meat allergy. I'm going to put it up here on the screen. We're talking about an allergy to meat. And it's called the Alpha GAl Syndrome. So newly diagnosed with this, and then someone in a kitchen that's going to make you food. What advice do you have?
Well, I would say first, just breathe. Really, because it's a really overwhelming diagnosis, I think, especially for people that may not have past experience with a food allergy, or they're just eating, the standard American diet. It's a huge, overwhelming shift. I would also say, take it just like one step at a time. And, that's something we've really tried to help with.
Because you have to learn to float before you can learn to swim, right? So this requires, for a lot of us, a whole lot of change. It's totally doable, even for those of us who are really extreme. And here's the thing. Do I miss bacon? A little bit. If you'd asked me like 2 years ago, I would have cried maybe about missing bacon, because I used to have not one, but two t-shirts that declared my love for bacon. It was like such a thing in my house, how much I love bacon. Now I got lots of other things that make me not miss bacon so much, that I can eat and don't make me feel bad, and I'm safe, and so I don't miss it as much as I used to.
Yeah.
So even though it's hard at first, and I would say let yourself grieve over those things, right? It is really freaking hard to give up when you're talking about assessing every aspect of your lifestyle. It is so hard.
Yeah.
And to give up things that you love, right? And you have loved for a lot of us our whole lives. It's totally possible.
Yeah.
And there are totally ways to reinvent this so that you miss things less, and so that you find new things, right? Like the vegan quinoa chili, right? Like, I'm not making even my turkey chili anymore because we would rather have, you know what I mean? So there are ways to move from floating to swimming to like full butterfly stroke, right?
Yeah. And the grief process is huge. I think
Yeah.
like you kind of you've got to lean into that, the discomfort of all of it, and feeling all the feelings, being mad, being sad, trying to reason and negotiate all that. You will go through that, and it's totally normal, but you will come out on the other side. And for kitchen, I just had an experience this weekend where I had to take a meal back at a safer restaurant when we were in Charlotte. And, it's just, I think, understanding I can't have anything on the same grill at all, even if it's been scrubbed. I need it in a pan or baked, or it has to be separate. So I think if I was speaking directly to a kitchen manager or a cook or chef, I just need to feel like I have their attention to really speak what my needs are, and that everyone's understanding what those needs entail. So time, I don't know, I feel like it's taking the time for whatever you need to express.
Yeah.
No, I think that's important for everybody across the board, understanding that it's not going to happen overnight, right? Eliminating it from your diet will actually help you feel better almost immediately, probably.
Yes.
But even I was chatting with somebody, Colleen Kavanaugh from, oh my gosh, she's going to freak out that I don't remember her company name. But she was telling me about corn allergy, and it is, on the chicken breast, when you buy it in the grocery store and there's that little piece of chicken or that little piece of paper underneath the chicken breast, that's made from corn.
Oh, I did not know that.
I didn't either.
Yeah. And dryer sheets. I don't even know brand names, but because I use wool balls now, but dryer sheets, they're made from corn. So kind of like your toilet paper is made with gelatin, right? So there's so many animal products that we don't think about that are being used in a variety of different ways.
Yes.
Zigo Foods, Colleen's company, Zigo Foods, just came to my brain. But it does take time to figure that out.
Yes. It does.
Yeah.
And allow yourself that grace. I mean, it does take time, but we deserve to have a good, safe experience just as much as anybody else. Anybody with allergies, anybody not with allergies, right? And so knowing that and learning that and telling yourself that, repeating it and tattooing it on your forehead, whatever you got to do to drive that home, I think is really important too, right? We don't, it's a little harder to feed us in a safe and inclusive and delicious way. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's a little bit harder, but that doesn't mean we deserve it any less.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, very true. And one thing that I always say in all of my presentations is that we all have to eat, but we eat in different ways because of what our bodies tells us, what we believe in, or what was my other one? Or where we live, right? And how we were brought up. Yeah. Because you're probably going to eat different if you're from West Virginia than you are in San Diego, right? Or India to Japan, and so that plays role in it as
Right.
well. But our bodies are telling us something.
That's right.
Absolutely. And, if you're able, seek out the restaurants that the chef, we talked with Chef Joel about this.
Mhm.
A lot of chefs really love the inspiring challenge of allowing you to have a really delicious, beautiful experience.
Right.
Right.
And, I know that that's not available to everyone for various reasons, but if you can, I've found that it just helps. It helps to boost those small wins.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So I want to bring that up because we were at a conference together. That's where I met you. And it was a conference for people with food allergies.
Yes.
And, and I don't know the process, but I know that, everything was made up free of the top 9 allergens, which was awesome.
Yes.
And so awesome. But then you still had a challenge to eat, right?
We did.
And so you had a personalized plate made for you, right?
We love this story though, because we saw Chef Joel there, who was there.
Joel Schaefer. Yep.
And he was sort of in charge of all the food there at the conference. And we approached him and we were like, hey, so you're the guy cooking. You're the guy. And we have this additional allergy. And he stood up and he took it very seriously. He looked us in the face and he goes, I'll tell you what. And he ran off and he's like, wait here. And he came back. He goes, when you all are ready to eat, you come find me. And he's like, you will have your food. It will be cooked in ovens that you will not be cooked with other pork and beef products. It will be vegan. He confirmed with us what we could and what we couldn't eat. And he took every possible precaution. And then when it was time to eat, we went and found him and we had these beautiful, delicious, hot plates of food that were safe for us. It was, it was such a beautiful experience to think of somebody who was already being challenged to accommodate all these other things, who so willingly accommodated us to make sure that we had this positive, not just we'll throw a vegan burger in the microwave for you, right? It was let me see how I can make this lunch just as special for you, but also just as safe for you as for everybody else. I love that.
That was great because I'm not gonna lie, I freaked out when I read the menu because I was like, well, shoot.
Okay, so burgers and hot dogs. So let's talk about that. So this menu was free of the top 9 allergens, which is wheat, soy, milk, egg, peanuts, tree nuts, shellfish, fish, and sesame. So top 9, right? So it was free of all of those things, which people are probably going, what the hell did you eat? Yes, there were a whole bunch of kids there. So we had hamburgers and hot dogs. We had vegan burgers. We had Hungry Harry's cupcakes. And I was talking about them this morning. And Sarah, thank you very much for being there. So we had Hungry Harry's cupcakes and some salads and things like that. But it was really cool that the servers knew what they were serving.
Yeah.
And they actually had a little card that they showed, they provided, but
on everything, on all the food.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was great. Joel he didn't hesitate. Yeah. And then, Oats and Coats had their oatmeal cups, which are totally safe for us.
Yeah.
So, it just felt so good. Not even with our little, being a little nervous. Joel!
I said, hey, Joel Schaefer, we're talking about you, and put 3 hearts behind it. Yeah.
But it just, really, it was huge. It was huge how you, Joel, just took it and made us feel completely safe, because it's scary because what we're dealing with, yes, we deal with dairy being an issue and wheat, but the go-to for anything else is beef and pork.
Yeah.
And so that's still, it's
yeah.
But it was fantastic. We had no issues. We were so well cared for, and just really appreciated
it was a huge relief, honestly, because when we got into town on the airport, we went and we had found the restaurants we were going to eat at. And on the way, I started breaking out in hives. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm reacting to something, which I think it turned out was in my mask, because I'd worn a mask on the airplane. Candice started feeling funny. So she started, I took my meds, she took her meds, and she was like, Debbie, we did not think this through. Like, if we both go down, there's nobody here for us. And I was like, no. We're going to an entire conference of people who know what to do with food allergies. We just got to make it to the hotel. Somebody will figure it out.
But we were in the car. I'm like, I won or whatever. And I'm like, if we go down, like, what are we going to do?
All right. So I have one comment about that in a second. But here, Debbie, your friend Lauren, you went to college together. She's like, this is a full circle moment. I love learning more about how to plan inclusive menus for my events.
Oh my gosh. I love your Christmas card.
Aw,
that's cool. So sweet. Thank you, Lauren, for jumping in here. Okay, so I want to jump back to the fact that you said, if you go down, I go down. I really think it's important for you as a person with food allergies to have a buddy.
Yes.
Whether it's your own friend or it's somebody at the conference to know, hey, I need you to know, or I need you to sit next to me, or I need you to be aware of my allergies. I think that's a really important thing to do.
Yes. So we talk all the time about having your first responder, right? So yes, we have, I got my husband who knows exactly what to do, who knows how to administer the EpiPen. My kids know what to do. I've got teenagers, so they know what to do. My neighbor knows, I have a neighbor on call, and I've got Candice, right? Like, it helps that we know this in and out, but we call each other our first responder because we know exactly what each other's reactions look like. It is so important to not just have that first responder who can support you if you're on the, if you're panicking on the phone, like, I feel like I can't breathe, I'm breaking out of the house, who could say, okay, take a deep breath. Let's walk through. What have you done so far? What are you going to do next? But in addition to that, having your entire plan in place, right? Because if you can set yourself up for success for when an allergy reaction hits, and let's be honest, like, even 4 years in, I gave myself the EpiPen a week and a half ago. It happens. It stinks, but it happens. We're still learning new places where we can be exposed. If you have your plan in place, it makes the process of treating the reaction go faster and smoother. It keeps me calm. I imagine it does a lot of other people too. But having all these plans in place and having your support person is critical. And I would add, even with the first responder piece of this, having it written out, having your information written out so that you do become incapacitated in some way that you can't communicate, they know what to do.
In my course, Every Meal Matters, which is relaunching in January, I teach that. And ask if somebody tells you they have a food allergy or even they have diabetes, right? Have them fill out a medical action plan, right? Yes. So that they, if they go down, you can give the EMT something, right? Saying, hey, by the way, we know that Debbie and Candice have meat allergy. This is what happened. Or, I'm just going to use Joel's name. Joel has diabetes and he had a reaction. So at least, and that's not HIPAA, just for people to know. I mean, we're asking that information. And if you give it to us, to me, it's that first responder. I love using that terminology, first responder, because we're helping save your life.
Yes.
Yeah. And I think when you get confident and comfortable speaking your needs and practicing that's something. Debbie and I launched a food allergy mentorship program last month, and that's something that we're working with our clients on, is building out their toolkit and how to be prepared. And that's a huge piece of it. And it can be very overwhelming and unnerving to go to your neighbor and say, this is what I'm dealing with. But for me, I dealt with massive PTSD after my anaphylactic reactions, and I was terrified to be alone. So for me to walk next door and let Jane know, this is what I'm dealing with. If I call you and need you to come help me, this is where my, toolkit is. It's, having the plan in place actually eliminated a lot of anxiety for me. And we're finding that in the community of people with Alpha GAl food allergies, anaphylaxis. You need to have those steps in place so that you can kind of, it takes it out of your mind a little bit, of the overwhelming unknown. So it's a big, big piece of navigating this.
Right. Yeah. I love that. And, this little piece of technology as well. I mean, if you fell, it's going to tell you that, it's going to call the EMTs that you fell, which is great. But they actually need to put an allergy thing on here somehow. Apple, here, let's get to it.
Candice and I both have what are the road ID bracelets, right?
Okay.
So they look pretty nice.
Yeah,
So
and they
like,
can fit on your band.
Yep.
They have different widths. So like
okay.
on a whoop that I wore, and I think it could fit probably on the Apple.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like a little tag that you can put on that just like we put the details on it, right? Like no mammal products or byproducts. Here's my in case of emergency, right? Like,
yeah. All right. So I have two questions because we're at 55 minutes.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. Okay, so two questions because Lauren popped in here and she's a meeting planner, so I'm going to put that up here again. But for her to create that inclusive experience for her event, as a meeting planner, how do you want her and other meeting planners, to address this when you're registering? Let's just do with that part. With when you're registering for an event, how do you want to know? How can Lauren help you feel safe?
That's a great question. And I would say in that registration process, if you're asking about food and other places where you're going to consume things, even coffee, right? Because people put milk in their coffee. If there's a place for me either to write it in or a checkbox about what specifically I'm allergic to, and even if there's like a little other section where I can say anaphylactic, right? So that as my daughter says, stop apologizing. Just tell them you're going to die if you have it, right? If there's a place that I can put that information to the degree of severity that it is, that would be really
That's a good point. Yeah.
I don't know if that's possible or not. But I mean, a checkbox, little notes.
Yeah, I love that. And I would even take it a step further. Like, is there a way to reach out to speak to that person on the phone, to then be connected to the caterer, or, I need to for me to feel safe to eat and not bring my own food, I would need to hear
Talk to Joel.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Even if there was a place to check that said, would you like to speak with someone working on planning this event? I don't know how many people would take advantage of that, if that's unreasonable, if you're planning an event for 10,000 people or something like that. But if there was a place for somebody like me to be able to call and confirm, just so that I know, right? Because if it's not going to be possible for you to cook my chicken separately, then I would love to be able to bring.
Yeah, they're not going to cook you meat, just so you know. They shouldn't be cooking you meat because you're allergic to it.
No, not at all. No. I can have chicken. I can have my chicken.
Yeah.
My chicken.
Well, and that's another thing that I teach in my course too, is here's how to set up your registration form, and just so for people to know, and Lauren does say that she uses an open-ended box for people to fill in. But it's because food allergies, and this is what I was going to say, food allergies were added, or actually eating and all of our bodily functions were added to the Americans with Disabilities Act. So in 2008, Candice, about the time you found out you got bit, right? And so we need to make sure that we understand that when we're asking individuals about disabilities or how they can fully participate in an event, I don't want to say, hey, we want to know what your disabilities are. How can we help you fully participate in this event? Please check off down below and give us some more information on what we can do, right? And that would be where that falls in. Yeah,
yes,
definitely.
Yeah, love it.
Yeah.
Thank you for going to the link to do that.
Yeah, yes. And Joel just said we were very fun to talk to. Y'all are fun to talk to. Okay, my last question, because we've got to wrap it up here at an hour. Wow, an hour. And it kind of ties into what I just asked you, but and I would love for the two of you to answer it separately as well, but what does a safe, sustainable, and inclusive dining experience look like, taste like to you? Actually, and I have one extra question after that. I want to know what your favorite food is now that you've been diagnosed.
Okay.
I mean, I think for me, just because, what I'm dealing with is so complex, an inclusive meal or meeting looks like, I think it's first that the person is truly, taking the time to speak with me. That is like a huge piece right off the bat, that they are really diving into a little bit of the nuances of explaining what the kitchen looks like. Sometimes it might not be possible, but as long as we can talk through and I don't feel rushed or that my allergies downplayed, I think that's a really big piece. I also can't, if they were just serving steak fajitas, I probably couldn't even be in there. So
Right.
I think for us, you know, there are these layers that I know, Tracy, it's probably like hard to avoid in a lot of situations.
Mhm.
So, you know, if the room is pretty clear in that way, I don't know, it makes it really, it can make it really tricky.
Yeah.
But I think the communication piece for me and like the transparency of, well, hey, we've only got grills, or hey, we've got pans that we can pop your Hillary's burger in, you know, separate. It's just the transparent communication, I think, is a really big piece for me.
And I would add across the levels, right? Not just the manager, not just the chef, but if talk to somebody in the kitchen, if we can make sure this is across all levels. And I know we addressed the inclusivity piece a little bit, but you know, in schools, they're asking kids with allergies to sit at a separate table from kids who are eating other things, and that's not the way it should be. They should be asking the kids who are bringing peanut butter, who feel like they have to have peanut butter, to sit at a peanut butter table, right? This needs to change. We need to reframe the way that we're looking at people with allergies. And I say that fully selfishly, right? I want to participate, but I'm also thinking about all these little kids out there who feel like there's something wrong with them and might not tell people that they have an allergy so that they're not excluded. And that is dangerous. So
well, and especially with all the mental health issues that we have going on right now, that is 100% dangerous.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, Candice and I talk about mental health all the time, and I promise I'll keep this really fast, but find a mental health tool, have a person that you can talk to, have a strategy that you can do when you're feeling anxious or stressed out, because anxiety looks an awful lot like an allergic reaction in some cases too. And if you can sort of work through that and differentiate between the two, it can make a world of difference.
Yeah, we could go on we could have a whole nother conversation about mental health and how this, you know, it is. It's so important, like that we need to care for our mental health in diagnosis across the board.
And I'm just.
Are we still on?
Uh-oh. This is dangerous. I don't know. Are we live or did we just get cut off?
I think we probably got cut off at the one.
No. I hit some button. Sorry.
I was like,
did you hear everything we said? We made sure we didn't say
I was like, it's uh-oh.
I think she hit the button.
No, I did the button again. Yeah. Hi. Here
we
I am.
We were about to say it's live with Debbie and Candice. It's going to get real dangerous.
That is perfect. I was just going to say, and Joel just said we lost you here. Yes, we did. I was going to say tag Tamara Hubbard too, because she's actually a really good therapist that works with specifically with families and kids, with people with food allergies, you know, to do that. So that's really important.
Amazing resource.
We love Tamara.
So much good advice and resources.
We actually have a podcast getting ready to launch with Tamara.
Oh, you do? Okay. Awesome. And I'm going to tag her in here. There's Hubbard. There we go. We are talking about you. We are talking about you.
Yeah, it's so important. I mean, we could spend a whole hour just speaking, and we won't to that side.
Not right now.
Maybe another time.
No, and maybe another time for sure. Okay, so my last thing is, what is your favorite food or favorite dish now that besides the vegan or the quinoa chili? What else? Anything else?
I've always loved pad thai. So I used to make chicken pad thai. Now I make tofu pad thai. It's still, I love ethnic food. So it's one of my all-time favorites.
Yeah. And I'm going to go with a snack here, because my favorite snack, like since I was had teeth, I think probably was popcorn. And the thing I love most about popcorn is probably the butter, but now I still love it, but I use Kite Hill or Miyoko's or Safe butter, safe vegan, plant-based butter. Right. And it's still my favorite.
Awesome. Overall. And the seventh person that I know with this challenge is Pamela. So she just, okay. Wow. We could go on forever, and I would love to. But I definitely want us to continue to work. And Joe just popped in and said he's got an awesome pad thai recipe in his cookbook. So we need to get that from him too. Yeah. And watch Joel Schaefer, Your Allergy Chef. So he's got great allergen-free recipes, vegan recipes on his Instagram. He's really fun, and he bowls. the middle of.
We have a great podcast episode with Joel also
Talking to him.
on our
Okay.
In the Tall Grass
And
podcast.
We get great feedback on the things that he
Mhm.
said from our listeners. Yeah.
Okay, so what's your podcast name again?
It's called In the Tall Grass with 2 Alpha Gals.
Okay, well, there's your website, and can they get the link from the website?
Yes.
They can.
Yep.
Okay, and then In the Tall Grass, you can get it on all podcast
All
platforms.
platforms. Yep.
Okay, awesome. All right, well,
Yeah.
thank you so much. This has been really good.
Yeah,
Really,
thank
really
you
good.
so much for giving us an opportunity to talk a little bit about 2 Alpha Gals and to talk
Yeah.
with you again.
Yes.
Yeah, likewise. Okay. So everybody, thank you for being here. This is the Eating at a Meeting podcast that you've been listening to. And this is Debbie and Candice, 2 Alpha Gals. And you can find them here on their website. They're 2 Alpha Gals, and they've got great resources for you if you've got the Alpha GAl Syndrome and or know somebody with it. And as I said at the beginning of the show, I actually know 7 people with it. And Pamela, that includes you. So it's mind-boggling that I know 7 people with this. So because I can't say that I know 7 people with a milk allergy. So it's really kind of crazy. Thanks, Joel. And he just said this has been great. So really appreciate that. Joel, thank you for piping in, and thank you for what you do. There will be a show next week, so don't think that I'm avoiding you for the end of the year. I am not stopping. And then kicking right off on January 4th. So same time, same bat channel, same bat place. Well, bats are not mammals, right? Or
No, I think they are. Well, are they? They've got fur. But do they lay eggs? I don't know.
I
We'll
don't
get
know.
back to you on that.
Okay, all right. So
We're not eating them either way.
all right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Oh, and ladies, stay on here with me. I'll talk to you all next week. Thanks.
Bye.